So we're live. Hey, we already have 3 likes.
Whoa,
Probably one from me, one from you.
maybe. But we're on fire. It doesn't matter. Once they catch the fire, they're all going to be chasing us. So that's good. We're good.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with another episode of the Ozone News. So this will be a recap of the latest articles and news stories revolving around ozone therapy and ozone. And today I have Judy Seeger with me, who is a huge ozone fan and is using ozone therapy on her clients and is the detox specialist par excellence. So, Judy, welcome to the program.
Hey, I'm excited. I always love being on the show with you, Pablo. We get into it. Like we just go, we don't hold back. It's the girls' day. Let's do it.
That's right, let's do it. So, but before we start doing it, I want to encourage people to subscribe to my newsletter. So, for that, go to thepowerofozone.com/news because big tech is censoring left and right, and ozone therapy is part of that effort to censor news and articles and information about alternative health practices. So in order to circumvent that censure, just subscribe to my newsletter. And there's a new book coming out, a new ozone book. So you want to be subscribed to be among the first ones to be notified when it's out. All right, so let's
Wait, I want
start.
to jump in here. People need to sign up for your newsletter. You have stellar research. Like, I think I'm good. You're beyond me. Like, you find stuff like, where does she find that? Like, oh my God, that's so good. And your perspective on it, because you've been in it so long and how you have seen it work. Your group is fantastic in Facebook. Your newsletters now are fantastic. And that you have a book. There's nobody who's made an ozone book in many years. I don't think people know that. The last guy I interviewed was Ed McCabe, who was Mr. Oxygen back in the day. He's been on the run. He did jail time. It was ridiculous, right? So the newsletter they need to sign up for and get that book. I'm all about that because there's nobody really like your caliber of understanding ozone with all the equipment and knowing how to use it like you. So it's like people would be foolish not to get on this bandwagon, which is why we're doing the news. Is like you need to be aware of how this really works and follow you first because I'm not doing the newsletter. That's all on you. You do it.
Judy, you are the best in encouraging and
Oh,
spreading
well,
the
we're not the same.
enthusiasm.
We're humanitarian, Paulo. We want to save the world, and we know that ozone is part of that big picture, and yet they're shutting us all down, which is why I'm so excited about the show today because they're like, "What is ozone? And why am I not hearing about it?" I get that every single day. I know you do too. I see your group. They're like, "What is this ozone? And can I take vitamins with my ozone?" They're asking questions that it's been around for 150 years. What is wrong with this picture? Well, we're going to get into that in news. I'm just so excited to be able to do that.
All right. Okay. So I prepared an overview here of the stories that we're going to cover. And so the first one is a story by LA Magazine, Los Angeles Magazine. And so this is a pretty crazy one. So I don't know, Judy, if you had the possibility to look into this. But basically, so they're talking about biohackers, right? So the title of this article is "Everyone's buzzing about biohacking, but will it actually help you live longer?" And so now some people may not know what biohacking actually is. But hold on a second. Before I start doing this, I'm having here some things with the software. Something that I wanted to.
That's okay. You go play with that.
Okay.
I'll talk. So here's what's so exciting about this biohacking thing. It's just a new word for something that's been going on a long time, right? So there was something called the blue zone people. People lived till 100 and they did studies on them and they were like 5 different countries who were doing it. They were average living 100 years old, healthy, and they weren't taking a lot of vitamins. They weren't doing a lot of different things. They were just certain things that were in place to have that happen, right? Then it switched over to, oh, that wasn't really popular. We can't really make money on that. Let's go over to anti-aging. Well, that boomed. Like I watched that whole anti-aging movement, Paul, I'm sure you have too, where all of a sudden they had conferences and people were talking about, oh, you could do Botox, plus you could do natural therapies so you could live longer and be wrinkle free. And I'm like, well, first of all, you need to be beautiful European women like we are because we have it going on, right? I mean, come on.
Right, but
What
this
do we,
is yeah, but this
you know,
is a little novel twist, and so biohacking, yeah,
no, exactly.
biohacking basically is like anything that has to do with like alternative home treatments. Yeah, mostly it is home, but it can be anything. It can be supplements. It can be something like cryotherapy. Cryotherapy meaning so basically using like cold temperatures to stimulate your immune system or to regenerate your cells or also ozone treatments, right? So they mention also here ozone enemas as part of this biohacking scene. And so here is, for example, they're talking about several biohackers, and one of them is Luke's Story. And they mention ozone therapy here also in the article. And so they say that Luke's Stories, by the way, I've never heard about Luke's Story, but he said that his favorite biohack gadget is a nearby utility closet, a suitcase containing an aluminum canister with a tube that runs through a cooling mechanism ending in a foot-long catheter, 5 inches of which Story inserts into his anus several times a week to pump ozone directly into his body. Now, I think this aluminum canister, like, this is a really weird description of an ozone generator that they're giving here. This is really
I never heard anybody describe it that poorly. I mean, he didn't
right.
even talk about the ozone. He was just making, comments about the machine.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is just a description, so this is not even a comment. So they're describing here what he's doing. So they're mentioning ozone a couple of times. Okay, so I'm just because I want to point out that although the article is about biohacking, but it also includes ozone treatments and specifically home ozone treatments, right? Because those biohackers, those are people who do, among others, things like ozone enema, which I assume they mean really ozone rectal ozone insufflations, right? But they call those ozone enemas here throughout
Well,
this
I don't know
article.
because some people now are using the water that they're ozonating it and putting it in for their enema.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can do this too, but they're not really specifying in this much. And I think the more popular are really rectal insufflation. So I will just assume that this is what they mean. But it doesn't matter what they mean. But okay. So here, this is a picture of Dave Asprey, and Dave Asprey is probably one of the most known biohackers. He's known for his bulletproof coffee, which I believe is a mixture of like a special type of fungus or mold-free coffee with butter, right?
Butter,
And
grass-fed butter, and the MCT oil,
ah,
coconut oil.
all right.
Hmm.
And he is a huge fan of ozone therapy, so he went on record and he said that he's been doing rectal ozone insufflations, and he has also a spot in Beverly Hills where you can
He does.
actually do ozone saunas, yeah, where you
He
can
has a whole bunch of biohacking fun stuff. Did you look at his site? He's got all the latest biohacking, the cryotherapy you mentioned, where it gets super cold. Something similar to hyperbaric. He's just got all these different things like you say, to really increase the longevity of the people by increasing the mitochondria activity on a cellular level. That's really what that's all about. And he's one of the big ones out there, like you say.
Right, right. So he is probably the most famous biohacker, right? And so he is also huge on ozone, and he also interviewed, I believe, Dr. Rowan and also Dr. Schellenberger, possibly also others about ozone. And so he is being quoted here, and he says, he also talks about the censure that people experience on social media. He says, your posts will get the big warning on them from Instagram, even if the post is true. But what they actually do is send less people to it, so you slowly get silenced. I've interviewed the pioneers, the top people in the world. They've spoken at conferences about how ozone therapy has cured Ebola. Ozone therapy works very well for coronavirus. If I get COVID, I'd be doing ozone therapy on day one. So why is it that I'm not allowed to talk about that? End of quote. Right? And then the comment of the author of this article says, probably for the same reason Twitter slaps a disputed tag on so many of President Trump's tweets, because it's not true. And then he says there's no credible scientific evidence that ozone has cured Ebola or does anything to help with COVID. And now I would like to unpack those two sentences of the author of this article. So he basically says that if Twitter or some other social media platform slaps a disputed tag on your post, then this automatically means that, first of all, it's justified, number one, because what you're spreading is not true, right? This is basically what they're telling us. That if some social media fact checker says it's disputed, right, and then it has to mean is that what you're trying to share is not true, right? Which
And all
is
they would have had to do is call up Dr. Rowan, who's more than happy to share him and Dr. Robin's story when they went to Africa, because I did. I asked them straight out what really did happen. And that's the real fact checker, when you go directly to the source and find out what's going on. So you're right about that.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Dr. Ron, Dr. Robbins, and there was also another African doctor, Dr. Carew, I believe, and a few other co-authors. And basically, they wrote this paper, but it wasn't really a study. It was a presentation of cases. It was 5 different cases, and I believe only one of those cases was actually a certified Ebola case. The other 4 cases was like most likely they had Ebola, but I don't think there were any laboratory tests that confirmed that. But
No,
anyway,
because they shut it down. They went to the prime minister, they helped his family, and then they shut it down right
right,
away.
right,
Why?
right,
Because
yeah.
because the country couldn't make money out of it. They figured that out real quick.
Yeah, of course. I mean, all those pandemics and all those health crises, they're really, one huge opportunity for corporations, for some pharmaceutical corporations to make big money in collusion with governments, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Because
7 countries right now that are using ozone. Some are actually getting into the hospitals. I mentioned before the show that there's an Italian doctor who's actually was able to do a double-blind study on a very small group of people in Italy. But nobody, all these countries, the 7 countries, nobody's allowed to make that public. They're not allowed to say ozone is helping with anything
right,
with the pandemic.
correctly. And this is going to be one of our next stories that this is exactly what's happening. So I believe that right now there's up to 8 different studies. Some of them are actually randomized controlled, placebo controlled studies. Others are case presentations, and they show that ozone therapy was used for COVID and quite successfully. But when they post about this on social media, they get shut down. They get like some disputed fact, or for spreading misinformation, and so on, which shows all those fact checkers. It doesn't really have anything to do with actually fact checking and spreading facts and information instead of misinformation. No, it's about protecting interests of big pharmaceutical companies, which are, all those big social media companies. They are actually also invested in many of the pharmaceutical companies. So it's really just like one conglomerate, and so their interests, the interests of pharmaceutical companies, are also the same interests as of big tech and social media companies. So they're all
Yeah, and we need to bring that up, Paulo, because people then always say to us, well, then where can they get accurate information from you and I? Yes, this is wonderful that they have it, but they really need to be paying attention to who they're listening to, because if they're just seeing it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you have to know your source. You have to know what's really going on behind the scenes, because this is very real. It definitely is happening. And people need to know that, ozone does work, but they're not saying it in public. Does that mean it's wrong? No, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean anything. It means that they're covering themselves and their ass from the pharmaceutical industry, making sure that they're staying in bed with them. It's like,
right,
no, we don't have any of those ties. We're going to tell the truth because we want to help people with the truth. That's the difference.
right. Right. So yeah. So there's 2 things to take away here from this comment of the author. That number one, it seems that he has not done his homework at all, because he says here there's no scientific evidence that ozone has cured Ebola or does anything to help with COVID. So he has definitely not looked into this, number one. Number two is when he says, when social media slaps a disputed tag on one of your posts, then it's because it's not true. And this also implies basically that he says that you are allowed only to share posts and information which is undisputed, right? Which is like 100% fact and truth, right? And there is no such a thing, right? Like, because everything in medicine, everything in science is disputed by someone at some point somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, we're doing double-blind studies, and the people that I know, the doctors who are trying to do them, it's a lot of money. This is why people say, well, how come you don't have all these studies and double-blind studies and put it all together in a way? Well, because it takes so much money. The pharmaceutical industry has a ton of money behind them. They could do that and prove or disprove whatever they want to because of the amount of money they have. We don't have that. And yet the doctors are still putting it together. That excites me. The ones that I know are actually doing it in their office or in small clinics on a small level because they're determined to prove that the ozone does work.
Right.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And it's really amazing that in spite of all the censure and crackdown that they have been able to do the ozone studies that they have done. All right, but so the most I don't know, like what to call it. I mean, this is so absolutely crazy what they're doing here. Okay, so here the next paragraph they saying in this era of QAnon and incels and Proud Boys, biohacking risks drifting in a much more toxic direction. So they somehow managed to draw a connection between people, between biohackers, between people who use ozone therapy at home and such ultra fringe groups like Proud Boys, QAnon, and talking about toxic direction. And here, the best is they say biohacking is largely a male domain. And then they say female biohackers make up a tiny fraction of the community, and all of the major thought leaders are white men. An undercurrent pulses through some of the darker corners of biohacking chat rooms, a mix of dogma, obsession, slight paranoia, and arrogance. So, okay, so
what does that even have to do with anything? I mean, we could say that in the pharmaceutical industry, oh, well, let's look at all the white boys that are out there who started the whole pharmaceutical movement back 100 years ago.
This is a very good point. Exactly, right?
I mean, you could say to women now, two European women, and we don't put up with that bullshit. Listen, when Tesla in 1890s created the first ozone generator, J.P. Morgan, he approached J.P. Morgan, and J.P. Morgan was, oh yeah, let's get that out there. But the pharmaceutical big boys came up to J.P. Morgan and says, hey, come over here, we got something better. So he went off with them and created the whole pharmaceutical rollout and left Tesla in the dust. This is part of the problem. The men got to get, so why is it all of a sudden the biohackers are made of men? Which a lot of times, unfortunately, is true. There are not a lot of women in our upper class, so to speak, with knowledge and research, right? I understand that. Okay, but that's nothing to do with nothing.
That absolutely has nothing to do with nothing. And so, I offer consultations, and I can say that, I have had clients from all over the world of all possible races, ethnicities, cultures, probably political persuasions. I don't talk about politics with my clients, but I can imagine. But okay, here is the crazy thing. So, number one is that there is a picture of another biohacker, Tony Hsieh. I don't know who this guy is. I've never heard of him, but he is Asian. You can see that he's of Asian origin. And then when you scroll up, there is another subtitle, which reads, "It should surprise nobody that Southern California has emerged as the biohacking capital of the world." So further up, they say that Southern California is the biohacking headquarters, right? And then further down, they're telling us that biohacking has something to do with QAnon and Proud Boys. So hold on a second. Are they trying to tell us that Southern California is where QAnon conspiracy theorists and Proud Boys can
Originated, yeah.
originate or can be found like in larger numbers? I mean, this makes no
Well,
sense at all.
they're usually worried because in California, if things take a foothold, it quickly spreads across the country, right? And so they're trying to squash it down, obviously, but their reasoning is totally on both sides of the scale. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, so yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. It has nothing to do with anything. I mean, what has the race or the sex to do with this? But then when you read on, then it actually, the sense becomes clear because there is an intention, there is a sense behind that. And so the author goes on to say, all right, so he says more about QAnon and Proud Boys. So he says at biohacking's core are seemingly benign notions of wellness, self-reliance, and experimentation. But in this era of QAnon and incels and Proud Boys, but by the way, what does it mean, era of QAnon, incels and Proud Boys? So you could also say in this era of Antifa, BLM, mostly peaceful protesters, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a broad statement to say that. Like, I don't even know where he's coming with that. We need to have him on the show, Paula.
And then he says, yeah, biohacking risks drifting into a much more toxic direction, especially when its dogma intersects with an agenda that is inherently suspicious of anything to do with establishment thinking or practices. Say, for instance, and okay, I'm not gonna say the word. I'm gonna say Vaselines. That's the
We
cold
all know
word.
what we're saying, yeah.
Okay. Say, for instance, Vaselines, but people who watch this, they can actually see here on the screen what it actually says, but I'm not gonna read it. And this is what this is about. And he goes on to say that basically now in this super critical time with the pandemic going on, and uh, he says we're at a dangerous inflection point right now, and the arrival of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines is pushing the biohacking and alternative medicine communities to a crossroads. The campaigns to undermine and discredit the largest vaccine program in human history are well underway, even though large clinical trials have shown the vaccines to be safe and effective. And this is what this is all about, in my opinion. This is what this whole article is about. It's basically, in my opinion, this is, in politics, you call this opposition research, right? So you basically do an analysis of your enemy, right? And this is what this is. So because like, why is he writing this? I was reading this article about biohackers, and it has like, this article is so long, probably has more than 10,000 words. And I'm reading this, I'm like, why is he so much into this? Like, how is this an interesting topic about people, who go into cryo chambers or put ozone up their bums, right? But then when you
Because they're
arrive,
worried.
exactly, they're worried because then when you arrived at the bottom, this is what it comes down to, because they're afraid that people will become suspicious of the vaccines, that people will have those crazy ideas that instead of having the jab done on them, that they can actually do some natural stuff at home and actually do not need to rely on their doctor or on medical authorities, right?
Right, and that was the pattern that started over 100 years ago when there was this division back then also. They've been trying to do this for many, many, many years in many different levels. And so when the pharmaceutical industry started, the homeopathic people, the naturopaths were using herbs and homeopathy. It was cheap. There was nothing hardly to it. And it was safer. And people were like, well, why do I need drugs when I could just take an herb or homeopathic medicine? So it's the same, it's very similar really in the road. It's like, oh, we need to get the jab, or oh wait, is there something natural that we can do? And of course they're squashing it down. They don't want that information out there, right?
Exactly.
Now from the detox perspective, because a lot of people are bringing this up, and maybe this is a good time to bring it up, Paula, is people are saying, well, if I get the jab, you can help me do a detox to get rid of the effects of this Vaseline, right? And I'm like, not this one. Typically I would say yes, but This is changing the structure of your RNA, even the DNA, I would venture to say. This is much more dangerous, right? So there has to be an opening to understand. People need to know that this is a big divide in the world. And you have to decide, if you're reading from this and listening to this, it's like, can you do this and still be safe? I say no. I really don't. You have to understand what's happening here and why are they doing it, which is the other thing that you're bringing up. Why are they doing it? So they could control, they could have money, they could do what they want with their people.
Right. Yeah. So basically, what they want to do, they know that some of those biohackers, like Dave Asprey, that they have a huge audience and they have quite some influence. And so when Dave Asprey says that he will not get the Vaseline, then this can, of course, have repercussions further down, and that his audience will also adopt the views, right? Uh,
Exactly.
and so what they're trying to do basically is they're trying to demonize, either demonize and at the same time ridicule and at the same time minimize those biohackers, right?
Right.
And paint them basically as this fringe alt-right Proud Boys, QAnon believers, crazy Trump supporters who believe into conspiracy theories, and the most shocking of all is that they're suspicious of government guidelines and opinions of medical authorities, right?
Yeah, they don't want people to think for themselves.
Yeah,
They
they
really don't. They don't want, they want to take that, and anybody who's close to allowing free thinking or to educate people like you are, they don't want it. They are going to try to come after everybody and squash it down. Look, they're taking it off of Facebook every time we put anything up. They're taking down any posts we're making. David Asprey, they're making him look like a bad guy. So the hope in this is that we're educating people with the truth to say, oh, there's a division, and this doesn't make even common sense. Why would I take a jab that was just created a few months ago that changes my RNA versus, oh, this is all natural, just going hot and cold. Oh, this is just natural. This is putting a little extra oxygen in my body, right? So they could see that, but we have to educate them. We have to
right.
spread the word. That's
Yeah,
the
no,
key.
it's blatant propaganda. It's just blatant demonization of a group that you regard as dangerous to your agenda.
Right.
All right, so next point is Facebook removes CIOT's post. So CIOT is the Italian Society of Ozone Oxygen Therapy. And now let me switch over here to the Google translation of this article. So the translation is not very good, and this has been posted on Free Press Online, some Italian outlets. And so here, this picture is of Dr. Mariano Francini. So he is the head of this scientific society for oxygen ozone therapy in Italy, and he says that this has been the ninth time, that number nine. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, number 9 time that his posting has been taken down. And, he says, like, I don't understand. Facebook said that it's supposedly because we're spreading misinformation. But in reality, he was linking to a study that was on the topic of COVID and ozone therapy, and that showed that ozone therapy is actually quite effective with COVID. And there are numerous such studies. There's around 8 that I know of. He says there are around 15 such publications. All right. So, and he says here, this bad English translation says those based, he says, what was I saying? 15 publications on oxygen ozone therapy have come out in addition to ours as a cure at COVID, so for COVID, and can be viewed entirely on our website, translated into Italian. Yet it is not the first time they have banned us, but the ninth, and without any justification, to say that we do not respect their rules. But what rules? Those based on truth or on silence, with the result of killing other people. We have reached over 85,000 deaths. This is for Italy alone. And this is a very good point, right? Because Facebook and all the other social media platforms, they say that they want to prevent the spread of misinformation because it can cause real world harm, right? And yet what they're doing, banning vital information about ozone therapy and what it can do, this can actually lead to real world harm, right? Because
Yeah.
because you are preventing people from knowing about something that is effective and safe and doesn't cost much, right?
No,
So
and they don't want us to talk to each other about how it works and what's going on. Dr. Mark Hyman, I was mentioning to you before the show, he interviewed, and I'm not sure if it's the same medical doctor, but same idea that he did a study of people who had tested positive and ended up using the ozone therapy because he's a PhD in ozone therapy. I didn't even know they had that in Italy. And he said, listen, he was allowed to do it in a very small study, just because they didn't have much money. And they found that the people who used the ozone therapy, they didn't die, they didn't get sick, and they didn't end up in ICU. That was a big deal. Whereas the other group that went the traditional route, two died, two ended up in ICU, and they didn't have a chance, right? So they don't want this information out there. That's why they keep taking it down. So people need to get smart and understand. It's like, listen, this is really happening. It really is working. And especially in countries like Italy, where it first really blew up. And people are like, well, what is there out there? Oh, we only have the jab. No, there's more. And that's why ozone is so exciting, because it is out there. It is available. We just got to get the word out.
right, yeah, all those censors have absolutely nothing to do with trying to stop misinformation or trying to make sure that people only know the facts, only the truth. No, exactly the opposite. It has everything to do with protecting the interests of big pharmaceutical corporations, in which Facebook, Google, YouTube are all invested. All those big tech companies have actually invested into the development of the vaccines, right? So if the big pharmaceutical companies do poorly, then all the big tech companies will also do poorly. They will lose their investment, right? And at the same time, the big pharmaceutical companies also provide ad revenue to the big tech companies, right? So it's basically like this is really just one corporate
Piece of it.
world that and they all protect each other. So this has nothing to do, absolutely nothing, zero. Exactly the opposite is true. They're trying to spread propaganda. This is basically what they're doing. They're doing marketing for big pharmaceutical corporations at the expense of the public, right?
People's lives, yeah. And what's really sad
Exactly.
is there's celebrities, there's leaders, there's people who are big names in the world, and they cannot. And I know some of them are starting to do ozone because they're starting to hear about it as well. But they don't open their mouth because they know that their ads and their sponsorship, when they do go do shows or their artists or whatever, is taken away. It's completely taken away. If they're going against the pharmaceutical industry right now, they do not get support. And then they could be shut down just because of that. So they do it all in private. This is sad, right?
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of their livelihood. And yet here they are, leaders and celebrities and athletes who are doing ozone and can't open their mouth.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All right. I think I will have to take down this episode from YouTube. Because I don't think this is gonna pass the censor, the fact checkers of YouTube. So it's only will be available on Odyssey. But okay, let's move on to the next story. Okay, this one's also insane. So this is a story. It has nothing to do with ozone therapy, but actually with ozone in the air, so ground level ozone. So this is a great example of scientific doublespeak, of like scientific nonsense that we're being presented in the media. So let me move here to this article. Okay, so this has been published on a small outlet, Malta Today. So Malta, this is a small island in the Mediterranean. It's tiny. I don't know. It has maybe 1 million inhabitants. But what that article says is actually exactly the same thing that Reuters, and Reuters is one of the major news outlets in the world. And 1 or 2 weeks ago, Reuters put out an article which was basically said basically exactly the same. And I was talking about this in my previous Ozone News episode. So basically, what's been happening is this. Okay, so I said yes, it does not have anything to do with ozone therapy, but indirectly you could make the argument that it does have something to do with ozone therapy, because there are studies which really are not studies. This is just another like fraud. It's just double speak for studies. So those are epidemiological or observational studies which say that the ozone, the ground level ozone that is present in the air, that this causes deaths. And they said that worldwide around 1 million people die because of the ground level ozone that is in the air, right? Now,
I'm so tired of hearing that. I mean, that's the whole 10 years I've been in this, and I know you've been in it much longer. They keep saying ozone is so dangerous, and it's only the media who does that.
Yeah, but this is based on what as I said, this is based on observations or on epidemiological studies, and such studies are unable to point out a cause and effect because they do not segregate, they do not isolate certain factors. Okay,
Right.
so they cannot actually say whether it's the ozone or whether it's the particulate matter that is in the air that is causing whatever deaths or some respiratory illnesses. It's impossible to be able to determine based on an epidemiological study which factor caused what, right? It's impossible. And yet they're using those to paint this picture of ozone being the bad guy and causing all those deaths, right? And so, although this has nothing to do with ozone therapy, we do get, from time to time, do get people, and I also get people, who contact me through my website or they post in the Facebook group. They say like, oh, but I heard that breathing ozone is so dangerous that it kills people, it can cause cancer and so on. And so why are people doing ozone therapy? Like, how does it work, right? So people read this nonsense, based on those epidemiological studies and believe that this is based on some valid science, which it is not. And then this discourages them from looking into ozone therapy, right? So one could make the argument that somehow, indirectly, that those types of stories do have some impact on the ozone therapy world, right?
Yeah, it really does. And it causes confusion. I've seen it many, many times. I did a conference one time where I got up and I was speaking about detoxing for cancer and the foods you have to eat and the herbs and the therapies and all these different things. And what I didn't know in the audience was somebody who was a pharmaceutical rep taking notes about everything I said, and he was the next speaker after me. So here we have a room full of 50 women, all with cancer. Usually breast cancer was the issue. And so they understood what I was saying. They were like, just like the ozone. It's like, okay, I get it. It's natural. It's not hurting people. It's been around for a long time. I'd like to explore it. I'd like to get into it, right? But then, same idea. This pharmaceutical guy came up and totally said nonsense because he really didn't know what anything natural was. He's a pharmaceutical rep. What does he know about nutrition and therapies and anything natural? Didn't know nothing, right? And it caused complete confusion in the audience. And that's what pisses me off, because it's like, look, if you're going to be in your lane, stay in your lane and talk about what you know. If you don't know it, why are you talking about it? That's not even good journalism. That's not even good research. That's not even good science. You can't do that. You've got to base it. Let's get these people on here. Let's talk about what is the science? How does the ozone really work? Shouldn't people be looking at it? Yes, if you know the facts, right?
Yeah, but people really also need to really learn to think, learn to research and to question the things that they're hearing, and this also applies to everything that I'm saying. I've been wrong many times before. So, please, anyone who finds, some information which contradicts what I'm saying, please come forward with this, right? But okay, so about this story here. So before I get into this, first I want to go on the website of the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency. So here is the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And it says here about ground level ozone basics. And they have here this nice chart that basically shows us how ozone, ground level ozone is created, right? And this is like for like really ozone, ground level ozone for dummies type of stuff. So we have here a car, the picture of a car, and there are exhaust gases that the car leaves behind. And it says here NOx, VOC, NOx. So NOx stands for nitrogen oxides, right? And it says here emissions from industrial facilities and electric utilities, motor vehicle exhaust, gasoline vapors, are some of the major sources of oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds. And here it says nitrogen oxides plus heat and sunlight equals ozone. So they're telling us basically car exhaust in combination with heat and sunlight creates ozone, right? And they've been telling us this for decades, and they have passed regulations on top of regulations and laws and fines for industries and car makers who are now who have to meet certain standards that the cars do not produce certain amounts of nitrogen oxides, and all this to lower the ozone levels in the air, right? So this has been drilled into the public for decades, okay? Basically, the equation of car exhaust equals ozone, right? Car exhaust plus sunlight produces ozone, right? Okay, but now the pandemic comes along, and with the pandemic, governments institute lockdowns. And what happened during the lockdowns is basically car traffic went, in some places, it was reduced dramatically, right? I remember when I was driving here in March and April, I mean, there was like on the Autobahn, there was like nothing. Like there were no cars. It was the most beautiful thing ever. Right?
I know, I don't miss the traffic at all. It was so nice not to have traffic.
There was no traffic. It was just fabulous, right? So now logically, if this, what they have been telling us and drilling into us over and over and over again, car exhaust produces ozone, car exhaust equals ozone, then logically during the lockdowns, when there was drastically reduced car exhaust, then ozone levels must have already also come, what, up or down?
Yeah, definitely would. Oh, there shouldn't be any ozone around.
There shouldn't, exactly, there shouldn't be any ozone around, right? But yet, what did they find out? Exactly the opposite happens. Ozone increased. And
how did that happen? Please.
Exactly. How did that happen? Right? So basically, this whole equation that they've been drilling into us proved to be completely fallacious, proved to be completely, utterly wrong, right? It proved beyond any doubt, no, car exhaust does not produce ozone, because car exhaust went down here, they say, in some places they saw a reduction, a decrease in traffic counts by 50%, and that nitrogen oxides were down due to the absence of traffic. But at the same time, they saw an increase of ozone. All right?
So let's explain that a little bit, because there are some people I know who are confused about that. So explain then to the people how is it that was bad ozone and then it didn't show it went down, it actually went up. What is the difference between the dirty ozone that the media keeps spreading the lies and the real ozone, and what's happening there?
Well, so here's the thing. So I really want to, okay, let's look at this way, like scientifically, because, okay, I'm going to answer your question in a little bit, but let's first like look at what is happening here, because basically what they're doing, they're trying to save the narrative at all costs, right?
Yeah.
And it's like what comes out is like complete gobbledygook. It's like complete, utter nonsense, okay? They're like, literally, they're contradicting themselves in two sentences one after the other. Okay, so here, this one sentence that I have highlighted in green. So he says, the author, however, photochemical activity determines the formation of ozone gas in cities, which increase in polluted urban areas due to high nitrogen oxides and traffic exhaust. Okay, so this is the standard narrative that they've been telling us. This is what the EPA says. Okay, ozone gas is produced due to photochemical activity and out of high nitrogen oxides. This is one sentence. The very next sentence, he says, in Msida, which is, I assume, a city in Malta, during the pandemic months, meaning during the months where there was no traffic, where there were no nitrogen oxides, an increase of up to 61% in ozone was noted compared to the business as usual scenario. Okay.
61%. There you go.
Right. So he basically contradicts himself just in the next sentence. Right. And he is like complete lack of self-awareness. Like, I mean, and the interesting thing is that this ozone scare, I mean, this has been going on for decades, literally for decades, right? And so you would expect some of the major news outlets to jump onto this, what's going on here, right? Because I mean, industries had to deal with so many increased regulations, just to save the ozone, to reduce the ground level ozone, reduce ozone at all costs. Industries have to be forced to put out less of the nitrogen oxides and less of those VOCs, and the industry is the bad guy because they're polluting. They're basically poisoning people. They're poisoning the public on a mass scale, causing millions of deaths because of their exhaust that they're producing, right? And now it turns out, no, this is all nonsense. So you would assume that, I don't know, the New York Times, Newsweek, Washington Post, someone would just jump on this and try to untangle this complete gobbledygook, they're trying to save the narrative, right? But no, nothing. It's like crickets, right? And so people here can write the most absurd things, like contradicting themselves in two sentences, one after another, and it's fine, right? So, okay, so basically, what can we say right now, right? How to untangle this mess? What's going on? Where does the ozone come from? Do car exhausts cause ozone or not? Or is it bad? And what is really going on, right? Okay, so here, if we were, let's say, in a perfect world where science would not be contaminated through government pressure, right? Because this is really what's going on. There are scientists who say this, that basically, you can't believe anything that is being published in science because they call it the scientific industrial government complex or something like this, right? Because government has so much money in there that it's just pure propaganda. Okay, so now let's assume this was not the case. Okay, we would be living in a near perfect world. So in such a case, what true scientists would do is, okay, they would go, okay, we had this theory that ozone is produced out of car exhaust, but now due to the lockdown, this theory has been refuted. We have to abandon it. It's been falsified, okay? The lockdown has shown us that no, ozone is not created out of nitrogen oxides, right? This is the only logical, scientifically valid conclusion that you can draw here, right? And now there would be the next question would be, okay, so how can we explain the increased ozone levels, the increased ground level ozone levels during a time when there was less traffic, right? Okay, and then you would go ahead and start some experiments and, postulate some theories. And, okay, first postulate theories, then you would design some experiments, then you would conduct the experiments, and then possibly you would come to some conclusions, right? How the ozone is created, right? How come that the ozone has increased? This would be the scientifically sound way to approach this, right? To first say, okay, sorry guys, our theory has been falsified. All the regulations can be dialed back. We don't need any of those restrictions on the industries. We don't need any of the restrictions on the cars, because obviously nitrogen oxides do not seem to play a role in ozone, right? This would be, so the first step would be to say, okay, we were wrong. Next step would be, okay, so we don't know, but we have some theories, so let's do some more research, let's do some experiments. This would be the scientifically sound way to approach this, right? But this is not what's happening. This is not what's happening at all. They're basically saying, they're just, what I showed, like they're contradicting themselves within 2 sentences, completely oblivious about this. And what they're saying now is that basically, okay, I don't think I will find the spot now, but they're saying somewhere that, okay, we actually still are convinced that the reason why the ozone has increased was because of human activities. We just don't know which one, but it must be the humans. It must be the bad humans, right? So we still need the regulations, and we still need to decrease car exhaust. So we still need to decrease that very thing that we have just found is completely irrelevant when it comes to ground level ozone, but we still need to lower it, because
there's no common sense in that.
No, none, zero, nothing, right? And this shows like the stupidest people in the world are highly intelligent, highly educated, brilliant geniuses. Those are the stupidest people, and they can really sell you like the most absurd idea. The most absurd.
Or they're even just being squashed that they cannot even move forward and say, there has to be, like, I'm always hopeful. Maybe there are some scientists who see the absurdity and lack of common sense in this, and lack of logic, and not doing the right scientific procedures, but they're not allowed to. Maybe they're being stopped every time they bring something up. I've always think there's got to be somebody out there who really gets it, but not allowed to say it. That's the only thing I could think of. How can they all be stupid? That doesn't even make sense.
Okay, here, this is the last sentence. Exactly. Okay, so there's some quote by who is he? Some Dr. Noel Aquilina and some Dr. Sarah Fenech. Some scientists. Okay, so they're quoted as saying, thus, in a future where these emissions are targeted to decrease by similar levels to those observed during the pandemic, the burden to control ozone levels will be enhanced. Therefore, policies should focus on limiting ozone precursors, which are not routinely measured across Europe. Okay, so there's still a... Okay, so this is it. Okay, so basically, they're immediately assuming that the increased ozone levels during the lockdowns are because of some other precursors, of some other ozone precursors. They cannot say which ones, right? Because they say they're not routinely measured, right? So they really don't know, but they know there must be some ozone precursors.
There must be something else out there, yeah.
Something that can be limited, right? And something for sure that is caused by the bad humans, right? I mean, best solution is to just get rid of the humans, right? I mean,
yeah, there you go.
Really, exactly, that's it, right? Man, I mean, this is insane. This is insane. This is like the third such article that I'm reading here about those increased ozone levels during lockdowns. It's just amazing. And really, if people could really understand the meaning of what's going on here, right, then they would understand the complete ridiculousness that is going on in science, right? You really can't believe anything when you read science says or a study has determined. Or, you can't believe any of it. It doesn't mean anything.
Used to be valid. Used to be, if it was scientific, you knew they'd done the studies. You knew that they were like following procedure. Those days are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, what you said that people are afraid to speak out, and this is in the scientific community, and this has been validated. This has been found out to be true over and over again. So I remember, so there's one great book by Nina Teicholz. Okay, so she has a German name, but she's American, so I don't know how Americans pronounce her name, but the book is entitled "The Big Fat Lie." And it is about this lie that has been spread in the nutritional community about fats, right? That saturated fats are deadly and they cause heart disease and so on. And she actually started researching this really in depth, and she wrote this phenomenal book. Like it's amazing. It reads like a thriller, all right? And so she found out, among others, that there was one instance where in the plant oil industry, I think it was canola oil, some producers of canola oil, they actually hired or they paid certain scientists or hecklers, and they paid them to sit in the audience during a scientific presentation of a scientist who was presenting evidence that showed that saturated fats are not dangerous, okay? And that heckler was that heckler was supposed to do is just stand up during the presentation, just shout some bullying, menacing stuff, right? And that dude was paid by, I think it was the canola industry or some other, some competitor industry, and it worked. Right?
Of course it worked, yeah.
And scientists got bullies. They got silenced, right? And this is just one example, but there are so many others where something similar has happened, right? There's another scientist. He is a mathematician. He has a name starts with a B, some Polish sounding name, but he's American, Buklinski or something like this. And he is among some of the scientists who now came forward and say that there's actually less and less evidence for evolution according to Darwin. They say that there's around 1,000 scientists came together and they signed a declaration saying that it is very unlikely that Darwin's idea of evolution, that this is a valid theory. They say that it looks like life has actually been created by some higher intelligence. It's not the product of random mutations, right? Around 1,000 scientists have come forward, and he is one of them, right? And he's also very outspoken about what is happening in the scientific community. And during one talk that you can watch on YouTube, he says that the scientific community behaves like the mafia, all right? That it's really, he really says the word like mafiosi. Scientists behave like mafiosi. They say basically it's like, they have their turf, they have their corners where they sell their shit, right? Meaning their ideas, right? And when some competing gang comes along, right? Like, for example, those people who have doubts about Darwin's evolution, then basically the mafia guys, they're just trying to take them out, just like mafiosi would do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. And the challenge is that not only are they squashed, not only is the information, the science, the proving is squashed, but the people don't hear it. They don't even get to make an opinion because they don't even get to hear what the results are of some of these people who are stepping out, right? So they're not only not getting it, because so many people constantly are saying, I've never heard of this. Why doesn't my doctor talk about this? I'm like, well, because it's not allowed to get out there. It's like really being squashed more and more, and that has to stop.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I've also heard that somebody told me, I think it was Dr. Al Dannenberg. He's himself a doctor, who was you made that connection. You forwarded me the information to him.
He had 4-stage pancreatic cancer. He was a dentist. Yeah.
Right. And he decided to go against the grain and to do the carnivore diet to control his cancer. And
after he had already done everything they had told him to do.
Yeah, and I think it was him who told me that when he talked about his doctor about that, that his doctor told him, you know what, keep doing what you're doing, but I cannot say this to my patients. I cannot recommend this to my patients because otherwise I would lose my license.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was Dr. Danberg who told me that, or maybe someone else I interviewed, but I think it was him. But yeah,
If
it's
you
it's
go against the protocol scientifically on any level, your license gets taken away. I have had friends who are doctors who have been threatened with their life. They've been thrown in jail. I have one right now who left the country and cannot come back because she's on the terrorist list, all because they're going against the grain to truly help people. And they have the scientific proof, but they cannot. And
yeah,
so they're all in trouble. Like they cannot open their mouth.
yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so this is why it's so important that really people look out for independent research and, start questioning and read stuff that is not in the mainstream, on mainstream television, on the mainstream news outlets. You really need
Yeah.
to dig in and really do your research. It's like by now this has become like a meme, like do your research, but really this is what you have to do, right?
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I have ridden this horse to death, but this outrageous me so much. Like this idiocy, this is crazy, and all in the name of science. Like I can't. All right, so next story is Russell Simmons is the next celebrity who has jumped on the ozone bandwagon, as it looks. So Russell Simmons, he is a hip hop producer. I actually had to look him up. Hold on a second. Oh my God! I had something open here, but now it's not there. Hold on a second. I need to actually type this in. Russell
Yeah, so
Simmons
there
ozone.
are a few celebrities that are doing the ozone. He's one of them. Madonna, I put that up on my Facebook. She was doing some ozone last year. There's a lot of them that do it on the side or privately, like I said earlier, but they just don't put it out there much because they're afraid to do anything that is against the norm in case their sponsors come against it. Madonna, I just don't think she gives a shit. She's just going to do whatever she wants to do. So she went out there and just did it, right? And I believe Shaq O'Neal, wasn't he just on the news? He's doing ozone. So they're starting to come out and saying, yes, I'm doing it. Yes, this is what's happening. And yes, I'm fine. But not that many.
Right.
There's a lot more out
Yeah.
there doing it. They just don't want to say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. This was good points, right? Madonna, Shaquille O'Neal, I believe Red Hot, a band member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Maybe it was the singer. I'm not sure. He also was into ozone. Then there was Marla Maples, who also said that she was doing ozone for Lyme disease. Marla Maples, of course, is she the ex-wife or ex-girlfriend of Trump? I don't know, one or the other. And yeah, so there's a whole series, a whole range of celebrities, right? And now here, Russell Simmons. So I found the YouTube video. So this is a very short segment. So I watched the whole thing, but it's like really like kind of useless. The whole video, like it's like he's doing yoga or some exercises, and only a very short segment shows him doing the ozone in Indonesia, and he's doing it for the forbidden thing for COVID or to prevent COVID. I'm not sure. So this is quite interesting, and it looks like it may be either major autohemotherapy or the tan pass that he's getting there.
Yeah.
So this is it's great on one side that celebrities, some of them at least, are coming forward with those alternative treatments, right? And because then ozone therapy gains more traction that way, of course. All right, so next story is we have some new ozone testimonials by yours truly. So one testimonial, this is really interesting. So it's the testimonial itself is on Odyssey, and you can find a link to it by watching one of my last videos. It's entitled Shannon, I Resolved Long Haul XXX with Ozone Saunas, and then when you go here in the description of the video, you click on the link, then this will direct you to the video itself, which I'm not gonna post right now here because, as I said, this it constitutes a thought crime, and I may have, I don't know, the FBI or the CIA banging on my door if I posted it.
Something. Yeah, you'd be on the most special list, that's for sure.
Probably. Oh, there is a file on me somewhere with one of the alphabet soups out there. Yeah. So this is, yeah. So this is one really great, really encouraging testimonial. So basically, Shannon, she did 2 ozone saunas, and that resolved her problems by, she says, by 100%, but like probably more like maybe 98 to 99%. It's just amazing, and this really proves my point that I really have been trying to drill into people for the past few years, that ozone saunas are really, in my opinion, one of the most powerful systemic ozone treatments, and it would be great to see people do more ozone saunas instead of rectal insufflations. I think when you compare the two, ozone saunas are for sure much more a much, yeah, more powerful systemic treatment.
I mean, your skin is the largest detoxification organ. So when you open up the pores through the sauna, and you recommend the steam sauna, so do I. I just love it that it opens everything up. The ozone goes in, it's coming in through your whole system right away. And that's what I used it in 2010 to heal my Lyme disease. We did a show on that. It works. You feel so fantastic because the toxins come out, the ozone comes in, and there it works. It's the largest organ, and why not use it that way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then there is another testimonial as Chris. He talks about hyperbaric oxygen therapy for ulcerative skin disease, which was pyoderma gangrenosum. And when I posted this, then somebody who used to work as a nurse, she said that she actually lost a couple of patients during her work as a nurse to this infection. So this is a skin infection, pyoderma gangrenosum, which can be fatal. It can be lethal. It can kill you. All
I
right.
hadn't heard about it till I saw that. I watched his interview and I thought that was so interesting. I mean, there's so many things out there now, right? But that one I hadn't even heard, and that could kill you. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, right? And he said that one time he had a wound, an open wound on his hip, where he could stick his finger in it and feel his bone, his hip bone.
Can you imagine?
Right, and so he was dealing with this for 10 months and, tried all the conventional routes and nothing helped. And then he tried hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and like within a month, the ulcers, the wounds had healed up. Amazing, right?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that in combination, the oxygen has to get down to the cellular level to heal. And I know people who like they'll start, well, if the conventional doesn't work, let me take supplements. I said, supplements are not going to touch that. What's wrong with you? Like,
Right. Okay, next point in our ozone news is, so there's a new series, so to say, on my website. So there's ozone sauna testimonials, and you see there's a new tab here in the menu, ozone sauna testimonials and vaginal ozone insufflation testimonials. So I'm gathering like all those various testimonials. So this is Ramona, who she says she got rid of cervical cancer with vaginal ozone insufflations. And here is a urea plasma infection, which resolved with just one single vaginal insufflation, that after a year of unsuccessful conventional treatments. Then Shanti here says she cured a uterine cancer, or she reduced the tumor by 95%, also with vaginal ozone insufflations. Then here we have adrenal and kidney tumors, also shrank with vaginal and rectal ozone insufflations. And so I gathered here those testimonials, just to, many of them are screenshots from Facebook, and I'm trying to basically preserve them in case the group gets shut down. And I've done the same thing here with ozone sauna testimonials. So anyone who has also a similar successful story to share can also add this in the comments. So you can.
and it's reassuring. You need to take credit for this because this is very important. When you have all those testimonials, I use them for my people because when they hear other people, it's like, what? Cancer with vaginal? What? And that helps. And in fact, I just sent somebody this week one of your video testimonials, and it really helped assure her that, oh, I haven't heard of it this way. You typically hear rectal ozone, but the vaginal, and she feels better. It's like, oh, it assured her that there's other people doing it. And then when she actually did it, she felt better. She was having gas and bloating and lots of pain. And within 2 days, she's feeling better. It's like, yeah, it works.
Yeah, yeah, it works. It's really powerful. I think there is a reason why it's been around for 150 years, and the doctors who use ozone therapy, they're often so enthusiastic about it. So although in many cases there may not be sufficient studies when it comes to ozone therapy, right? Because yes, there are many studies in ozone therapy, but it's like not about all the different applications and all, not with all the different diseases that ozone therapy is used for, right? There's essentially no good study about ozone and cancer, for example, right? But still, it's being often used for cancer, and often successfully. So yeah, although there are really no, in some cases, no solid good studies, doctors are often super enthusiastic, and the same with patients. I know someone who has tattooed all three on his somewhere on his body. This is Brian, who's been doing ozone for multiple sclerosis, and he loves it. He's been doing this for years now, and he says that it basically resolves all his multiple sclerosis symptoms. And he loves it so much that he tattooed this ozone on his body, right?
That's somebody who's dedicated to ozone, yeah.
Yeah, right. I actually should have such a tattoo.
You should, the crazy ozone lady, of course. There
Right.
you go.
So yeah, there's definitely something to it. Okay, and the last is update on a product. So Promolife, as some people may know, has those O2 ready pre-filled tanks. So those are pre-filled tanks that people in the contiguous USA, so basically all the areas except Hawaii and what is it, Puerto Rico or Puerto Rico, I believe, and Alaska. So apart from those states, you can actually order pre-filled oxygen tanks. Also, if you're in Canada, you can also order them. And what is the update? Well, up to now, they had oxygen of 99.6% purity, which was already very, very pure, which is basically medical grade level. But now they say it's become even purer at 99.999%, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, so that was that. Okay, that was longer than I anticipated, but I got really, heated up with two of those stories, because it's just like insanity is taking over. It's just like you need to get it out, right? You need to
We
talk
need to
about
get,
this.
yeah, we need to get it out. Are you still live or?
We're still live, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so well, here's the thing. When you're able to say it without worrying about the repercussions, because you really want to save people, this is why I want to make sure we're still alive. That's invaluable. People are not hearing this. They're coming to me and saying, my doctor doesn't even tell me what stage cancer I'm in. I don't know what to do. Like they're not saying nothing to the people. So here we are explaining, look, this is what we're hearing across the world. This is information that is going to help you change your life and protect you. You need to help us spread the word, right? This is just the two of us, and we have a following, yes, but we need help spreading the word. So everything you're hearing on here, we got proof. We've got proof now. You need to go. We got testimony. Paula has all the testimonial videos. I have a bunch. You need to send this to people so that they understand the power of this. This is like a game changer, for sure.
they need to understand the power of ozone.
They sure do. Yeah.
That's it. All right, Judy, now if people want to contact you, and I believe you're planning some retreats, or are they over
No, that's
already?
taken off the table because nobody could travel. It changes every time I talk to you. Things change. It seems every week, right? New rules. I'm here in Florida. So what we're doing is, and I've been actually working on this for quite some time, and now it's rolling, is concierge work, meaning people who come in Florida, and there's a huge amount of people moving right now to Florida for lots of different reasons. We're not going to go into the politics of that either, but I'm here in Florida. I have my nurses all lined up from the East Coast to the West Coast. So if people want to do the ozone, we're doing the ozone. And we're just going to go all out. I've got doctors backing me up. I've got 3 clinics I could work out of, and I'm like, come on down. So contact me, get a hold of me, and let's get things rocking and rolling. And I use ozone in different ways too. I don't use it like typical clinics. I use a lot of the sauna. I really believe in the sauna. I really believe in the insufflations, vaginal, rectal, ear. I believe in all that, but we also do some subcutaneous work. Anything that is safe and easy that the body can handle, we do it with ozone. But I also combine it with detox because that's my main jam. Love to detox people because then they get rid of the toxins. The ozone comes in. They feel like $1,000,000. They don't have any side effects. It works out really, really nicely. So they can contact me. My website is floridamobileiv.com. I'll make sure that you have it for your people with my phone number. Text me. I take numbers. I talk to people. It's me. And it's just a matter of getting people on this ozone bandwagon. That's really what this is all about.
Okay, so hold on a second. So basically, someone will come to my house and do ozone on me. Is that
Yeah,
what you're
well,
talking about?
we have two. We have actually two options because some people, like we have people coming down mostly for cancer right now, but they want to be in the clinic. Okay, great. We could. So we have clinics on the east side, west side of Florida. If they want to come to the clinic, that's fine. We also work with the hyperbaric oxygen clinic, stellar one here in Florida. We could send them over there. But really, a lot of them are saying, can you come to my house? Yes. So we come to their house. We come to the house 2, 3 times a week. We do ozone with them. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, and is this more expensive than if I went to the
Here
clinic,
in
to the
this
doctor?
the States, everything's expensive, Paula. You know
Right.
that. You know, it just is, right? But I combine it with the detoxing and I combine it with the whole big picture, which none of the other doctors do. They just give the shot, like they do the major autohemotherapy, they might do the 10 pass. I put the whole thing together with the detox and the food and everything for 21 days. So it's a complete program, right? It's not just, oh, you go in once, you're done. No, no, no. We
Okay.
take care of the people. We want
Okay.
them to get results. Yeah.
Okay. What's the name of the website again? Tell me.
FloridaMobileIV.com.
floridamobileiv.com. Okay, I will
There you
include
go.
it in the description below.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, cool. Okay, also the disclaimer, of course, nothing that was said in this video constitutes medical advice. If you're sick, go to your doctor, blah, blah, blah. No, but seriously, right? Don't listen to crazy women. All right,
That's right.
Judy, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
A lot
And
of fun.
yeah, let's do it again.
All right, let's do it.
Bye. Bye bye.
Yeah.